It's a new day and I'm back at it again. I'm going to start working on a couple more of these gusset pieces. Should be the last few. Once I get some of that done, I'm going to work on the front fenders and the bar that's going to go from side to side here to tie my seats in, which is also going to get tied into the frame as well. As you can see, I got a bunch of these gusset pieces all cut and ready to go. So I'm going to go ahead and tack them in, 8 to be exact. I'm going to start cutting out the bar that's going to mount the seats to the cage and the frame here, and I can get it all bent up. Gonna go ahead and get this seat mounting tube all bent up. It's gonna be 2 bends at 40 degrees. We're gonna go ahead and bend the tube benders up. This first one's going to 17 degrees. Alright, 17 on the dot, maybe 17 and a half, close enough. This one's going to 73 degrees. Man, I don't know that we're going to have enough tube to make the length of the bend that I need. Cross my fingers, this is going to be long enough. Might have a real problem here. Not about 3 inches and I'm not going to get it.
I think you'll be fine. Just barely.
I'm real close. I need 1 inch. Whatever it ends on is what I get. Oh, 70.
I think that's it.
It may be a little underbent, but that's what I'm gonna get. Oh. I guess go ahead and send it just a hair more, maybe. Hopefully it doesn't get jammed in the die. Because I need to make the next tube a little bit longer. That's definitely not what you want to do.
No.
Now it's like kind of wedged in there. So now that I got the tube in here for mounting the rear part of the seat, I got to figure out how to tie it into the frame. I think I'm going to cut some squares out and then I'll have access to clean the frame up so that it'll be ready to weld. I'm probably going to use a piece of angle iron on the top and running down the inside and tie the tube into the frame like that so it's got a little more surface area because the frame is not exactly the thickest thing ever. There we go. Basically got this stuff right here all prepped for getting tacked together. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this seat mounting bar put in, tacked together anyway, and the front tube fender on there. So. Now I'm going to start getting the driver's side tube fender all bent up. Try that again. That didn't work out so well. I added some extra tubes so that hopefully I would have enough that I could get the degree of bend that I needed without the tube slipping out of the holder guide die here. You can see here the tube got pretty mangled on the end there because it was too short. So when it came through the guide die on the bender, it ended up going past the guide and smashing into the, I don't know, the non-guide part of the guide. Ended up being too short anyway, and then I held it up next to the other tube, and some of the extra tube that I added ended up in between the two bends, making the distance between them longer than the one on the other side, which wasn't exactly ideal either. So the reason it ended up being short is that I had made some marks here. You can see the 73. This is my start line and the end side of it, so I knew which way it was going. Well, I think that I saw this and thought it was my start mark because I can tell the bend started right here. So I was indeed probably about 4 inches in front of where I was supposed to start. That's why I ended up running out of tube on this end. Had I not done that, this might have worked out perfectly. And unfortunately, this one was all perfectly in plane. It would have been great. I could have put it up here with no hassle. I added extra tube this time, and then I just laid it out as per the instructions, and it should turn out right, I'm hoping. So fingers crossed. Tube's pretty expensive to be wasting, like $6 to $10 a foot, so I'll definitely find a use for most of that mess up piece, but definitely a bummer. But at least that was the only one that I've really messed up so far on this project, so can't really be too hard on myself, I guess. For the most part, the only one. Anyway, here we go. Look like it should be better this time, as long as I didn't get compound action in my bends, which according to my digital gauge I shouldn't, but it kind of looks a little funky. Could just be because things are tipped with all the weight hanging off, but whatever, I'll find out. Hopefully I can live with it. Should be within a few degrees if it is. I got the driver's side front tube fender tacked on there. When I was bending it up, I noticed that the first bend looked like it was running downhill, even though my digital gauge was telling me it was zeroed out. I think what happened is I didn't put the digital gauge on until I released the pressure on the first bend, and it probably sagged a little bit before I got it set on there. So that was kind of a problem. It ended up being a compound bend, and I took it off and on about 3 or 4 times trying to get it to look right. This is about as good as I could come up with, so it's not the worst thing ever, but basically it runs pretty flat on that first leg to the A-pillar, and then it kind of runs uphill coming on to the front hoop there. You know, it's not the worst thing ever. It's more of a visual aesthetic. This passenger side worked out really nice. It looks great. Really happy with that. So I got a couple options. I can just leave it because it's aesthetic, really. That's about all it is. It's not going to be structurally a problem. That'll probably bother me. My other options would be I could try again with another tube. Be more careful this time. It worked out pretty good, but then I have to notch it again and everything. And I ended up just winging it with the notches too. I didn't do the template cutouts on this one for whatever reason. Just didn't feel like printing them out and cutting them out. So I just kind of winged it on that, which worked out fairly well, but it took me a little bit of time. My other option would be you can cut it in between your two bends and then slug it inside, and then basically you can rotate the tube so that everything is in the same plane. Since there's only 2 bends, you would really only need to do it in one place. I'll also drill some holes and rosette it so that it has like some plug welds, which will give it some extra strength. I think that that's the option I'm gonna go with, just to make it right without it being a ton of hassle. Only adds a little bit of extra welding. The other thing about these tube fenders is that I cannot weld them out until the cage goes back on for good, which will be after I pull it off, weld all the inaccessible welds, and then paint it, and it'll go back on, because I obviously won't be able to get paint on the inside where it's close to the body there. There's just no room to get a spray gun in there, so got to do that first, then put it back on. And as a lot of this has been, there's some order of operations. So I'm just going to go ahead and pop this thing off here, finesse the notch on the A-pillar side so it rotates down a little bit, and then I'm going to chop it right here in the middle of this leg so that I can get that to rotate to where it needs to be. Maybe finesse that notch up a little bit. Get it slugged, plug welded, fully welded on the slug. We'll be good to go again. I prepped the seam where it's going to get welded back together. I got the sleeve piece in here, which is a piece of 1.5 inch quarter wall inside a 1 3/4 inch DOM tubing, sleeves right in there nicely. I got some holes drilled for some rosette welds. This should be pretty good. I'm gonna go ahead and get the side that attaches to the A-pillar tacked on where I like it, sitting nice and flat on this fender first. Then I'll slide the front piece in that attaches to the front hoop, get that all lined up where I like it, tack it on, tack the seam. Tack was out of control. I got the tube for the front seat mount all fabbed up here. Notch turned out pretty nice. I used the Bentec wrapper for that one, but I did modify it a little bit for a better fit. Needed to bring it up a little bit. My pick points were just a little low, but I figured I'd rather be erring on the low side than the high side because that's easy to fix. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the one going for the passenger side, and I'll start getting those installed pretty soon here as well. Time to get this seat out of here. Now that I got the driver's seat out of here, I'm going to use this piece of angle to tie the two legs of tube together, and then I'll be able to mount the seat down to that. So basically, piece of angle will go from here to here and here to there. There's also going to be a support that goes from here down through the floor to the frame. Put the seat in here and see how it looks. And it's looking pretty nice. All I got to do is pull it back out and drill some holes so that I can mount it for good, as well as finish welding all that out. Here I'm going to get to making some of the last few tubes that are going to go on here. There's a diagonal that's going to go at the tube fender here, back this way, as well as on the other side, and then some kicker bars that are going to go on the B here down this way. So I'm down to my last couple pieces of tube here. The shorter one is going to get cut in half and used for the support for the tube fender there. Ironically, I got more tube than I thought I was going to need for this. This was before I had Bentec. It would have been able to tell me, but I kind of made a rough estimate and I am using it all. I had like a whole extra stick, and a piece of hot roll accidentally got thrown into the mix on the passenger side, diagonal from the rear to the B support there. So yeah, used quite a bit of tube on this one, but I feel like better to be safe than sorry. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and get that stuff all cut up and fit up and go from there. These fender support tubes are going to need an angled notch. I'm guessing it's going to be about 30-35 degrees, somewhere in that range. I'm going to start about 15 and work my way up. 30 was almost perfect, but just not enough. So I'm going to take it to 35 and go from there. Now I just got to get the bevels cut on the bottom of those tubes and they'll be ready to tack on. This should also be about a 35-degree cut. Let's go ahead and see how that fits. Sure looks pretty darn nice to me. Seems to follow the line of the fender. I'm pretty happy with that, so I'll just make the other one the same. Tube fender ended up being a little bit higher than I thought it was going to be, so I need to take this piece off right here and adjust it so that it runs into the tube fender at the right height. Change these notches a little bit so it can pivot up. Before I got any further along here with the seat stuff, since I didn't have the front tube mounted yet, that ties into here to make things a little complicated to take apart, I decided to try to do a test run and see what I can get apart and back in here to figure out what I can weld out. And so my idea was to detach this one because it's only sitting on this seat mounting tube here, so it has room to kind of slip out there, and then this may have room to kind of come up and back and out. So I should be able to weld all of this out, which will be great. That'll give me access to be able to weld around the base here, and the base here. Then all I gotta do is put it back together, which if I pull this out a little bit, it slips back into there all right. I think that that's gonna work out. Now we're gonna get this front fender tack back on here, as well as the support that goes with it. I may keep it as 2 pieces to get this cage in and out of here more easily, but I'm gonna tack it all together as though it's getting welded out, just so that I have that reference. Now we're good to go. Time for some welding. Go ahead and let some of that cool down and jump to the other side. So I've made some pretty good progress here. I got the mounts for both seats totally in, except for I need to get the post that goes from the front tube down to the frame. I need mounts for putting a roof panel on this thing. So I think I'll also do some triangular dimple die gussets up on top that I can put some rib nuts in to bolt a roof panel down to. So that's kind of what I'm looking at to wrap it up. Then I can pull it back out and paint it, put it back in, weld it all out, etc., etc. So I got the hole cut out in the floor. Now I got to get the frame cleaned out and get the support cut. But here's what it's looking like. It's gonna end up looking like this one back here. I got some cleaning to do to get to there. So now I just got to do the same thing to the other side. Got the piece started for the post, just got to cut the floor and do a notch on it and get a piece angle in place there. Both of these front seat supports all ready to go. Just need to tack them in. I got to be careful though, because there's kind of a order of operations, because things are pretty tight in terms of being able to access with the welder. And this front seat mounting tube is probably going to get disconnected when things come apart and go back together. I'll probably weld the angle to the frame and then maybe the tube to the angle and just tack the support to the front mounting tube. So we'll see how it goes, but that's basically where I'm at. This side all welded out. So now I'm going to tack the support tube on. Now I'm going to do some more welding on this other stuff that I started before. That's going to be all for this time. Stay tuned for part 4 to see the cage in its nearly completed form. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe.